Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Dr. Teresa Alasio, how are you?
I am really good, Tel. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, sweetheart. Glad that you're here and all is okay. Both of us hesitant to speak, wait, we're having communication issues. Is it going to work? Is it not? Are we ready? But wait, are we ready? Are we ready? Are we good?
Yes, absolutely. We're good. We're here. Can you hear me? Hello, hello.
I hear you perfect.
All right.
Fantastic. Please tell us a little bit
Amazing.
about your company. I know it's Intentional Self, CT.com. That's the website. You're from Connecticut, but please elaborate a little bit. That's a tongue
That is
twister.
right. My company is in intentionalselfct.com. That's the website. The company's name is Intentional Self. I have a Facebook page, Intentional Self, and my Instagram is Dr. Terry Alasio.
Beautiful.
Yep.
And we always have some great stuff to talk about. We talked a lot about, my gosh, the gut, mind, brain connection. We talked about weight loss and coaching and what's in store for today, since it is a new year, I'm assuming. Go ahead.
New Year.
Check this.
Well, I mean, we've talked a lot about the gut-brain connection, and I wanted to come at it today from a little bit of a different angle under the topic of autoimmune disease, because this is a huge, huge issue in this country. Over 50 million Americans suffer with autoimmune disease. This is a staggering number. And so I wanted to just address autoimmune disease in the light of gut health and some of the things that impact autoimmune disease or causes of autoimmune disease, factors that we can control through our environment, through what we eat, through what we think, through how we behave, and some of the things that people can do and get a better understanding of that.
And let me ask you, for example, what are some of these immune deficiencies or disorders that we have? What is that specifically? I'm not even sure, to be honest, an autoimmune disease.
Oh,
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first we have to just describe what are autoimmune diseases. So autoimmune diseases there's many of them, right? We're talking about thyroid disease like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, psoriasis, lupus, type 1 diabetes, MS, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, alopecia, celiac. I mean, and there's just many, many more, but those are the most common ones. And what people should understand is that autoimmune disease is one of the top 10 causes of death in women under the age of 65. So this is not an insignificant thing. And autoimmune diseases affect mostly women. It's like that 65 to 75% of women, 65 to 75% of patients who have autoimmune diseases are women. So these are some of the factors that are significant. Some people, it was historically thought that this is genetically motivated, that people who had a family history of autoimmune disease were destined to pass it on. And that has been the typical view of conventional medicine, that these diseases are genetic, they're incurable, and treatments have been focused mostly on symptom management, anti-inflammatory drugs, hormones, and immunosuppression. But if you look at it from a functional medicine perspective, autoimmune diseases are not looked that way or treated that way at all. So it's really astonishing to look at the different ways that the different approaches, from a functional medicine standpoint, 70 to 90% of the causes of autoimmune disease are environmental. So we're talking about stress, diet, infections, toxins in our environment, such as heavy metals or pesticides, hormonal hormone ingestion, like hormone therapies or different kinds of xenoestrogens that women take through lotions or pills or any kinds like that. And these things all affect autoimmune disease. These are all environmental, right? And that if they're environmental, that means that we can do something about it. Oh, are you with me so far?
Yes, I am.
Yes, you are.
Environmental. We could do something about this. This is good.
Environmental, right?
Yep.
So so what we're talking about here, environmental, we're talking about chronic stress. So chronic stress, having our bodies constantly in the fight or flight response, meaning that you're having like the chronic stress contributes to heart disease, cancer, and autoimmune disease in a very significant way. Unhealthy coping strategies to deal with our stress, such as over drinking or consumption of sugar, carbohydrates that are refined and processed, nicotine, alcohol, drugs, and it also, behaviors such as overspending or overworking or procrastination can be extremely stressful and contribute to chronic stress in our lives, which in turn weakens our immune system. Mm-hmm. Right? So really, looking at, chronic stress, and also, when we talk about the influence of our gut health on our immunity, if you really think that 80% of our immune system is in our gut lining, so it would only stand to reason that imbalances in our gut microbiome can lead to autoimmune disease. And remember back, maybe a couple of times ago when we were talking about it, we talked about how, overuse of antibiotics can cause dysbiosis or imbalance in our gut. Leaky gut, which is the weakening of the gut barrier, allows pathogens and toxins to leak through our intestinal lining and activate our immune system, causing inflammation. Mm-hmm. And really what we're saying here is that autoimmune disease is when our immune system looks at our own healthy tissue and does not recognize it as its own self. So it attacks the healthy tissue of the thyroid, of the liver, of the pancreas, the skin, the brain, the joints, the hair, all of these kinds of things. When the body is in an inflamed state and it does not recognize itself as its own self, it treats it as an antigen or something that will create an immune response. You're with me?
Yep. Okay. Interesting.
She's with me. And there are several things that happen and can cause this kind of autoimmune response that happens. And it starts with what we ingest into our gut, right? So nutrition-wise, if we're nutritionally deficient in vitamins and minerals like beta carotene, vitamins E and C, zinc, selenium, if we are eating genetically modified food, which genetically modified food has been made to be more allergenic, which increases autoimmunity. And, genetically modified food is really to, cause the food to have like its own pesticides. So basically, it's so they can sprinkle less pesticide, right? So that instead the food itself has a pesticide contained internally, genetically placed. So really what's happening is that when we eat genetically modified food, or the frankenfoods, as some call it, you're actually ingesting pesticides, which causes an immune response.
Okay.
Right? There's also compounds called lectins, which are found in there's a protein that are It's found in plants. It's toxic unless it's cooked. Lectins are part of the plant's natural defense, right? But what happens, they're located in grains, dairy, soy, nightshades, which is like potatoes, peppers, tomatoes, and also nuts. And they contribute to the autoimmune response, especially to rheumatoid arthritis. And what happens is the lectins stick to the walls of the GI tract and cause inflammation. So in some people, this can create an immune response if you're especially sensitive. So sometimes people feel like they're sensitive to, potatoes or peppers. It causes some kind of response, and they could be right. It's the lectins, the plant protein that's in there that causes that reaction and contributes to that immune response in the fact that it causes inflammation, right? And genetic modification also adds to that lectin content. So that can be actually more put in there. And so therefore we have more of a response to those who are sensitive to it.
Got it. Well, gentle reminder, a lot of us aren't eating properly.
Yeah,
Oh no.
it's
But
just
even
sometimes...
what about even our fruits and vegetables, the healthy stuff? Aren't things being grown with genetic modifications, and does it have to be organic? And it gets so confusing.
It totally gets confusing. But there are some things that are not confusing. One of them actually is gluten. Gluten is a big offender, and a real autoimmune trigger. And obviously gluten is a protein that's found in wheat and barley and rye. And basically this triggers the autoimmune response through something called molecular mimicry. It's that gluten looks to the immune system like other healthy tissue. And so when gluten leaks out into your system, your immune system sees it and says, all right, well, I recognize that as an antigen, something that I'm going to attack. But gluten is similar enough to healthy tissue, like particularly the thyroid, that your immune system may say, oh, I can't recognize whether or not is that gluten or is that something else. So it may take healthy tissue as something that's antigenic. So it may attack the thyroid tissue by mistake, but only because it looks like the gluten molecule, for example.
Got it. Okay.
And this also happens with infections, like low-grade infections also cause an autoimmune response through this molecular mimicry. So it can be something like, the virus that causes Lyme disease, or fungal infections, or strep or staph or Epstein-Barr virus.
Oh, I have
Sometimes,
that.
well, these sometimes cause a stimulation of the immune system, that the immune system sees the virus, but it may go to, kill the virus, but other healthy tissue is destroyed in the process. Or infections can cause an inflammatory environment that causes the change in proteins from the self proteins, right? Where, it recognizes your tissue as self. And then sometimes those proteins change as a result of an infection that the body does not recognize it as its own self. It says, this is not me, this is non-self. And then it causes an attack, right? And then some infections also cause a depletion in a compound called glutathione, which is the master antioxidant of the body. And low glutathione is implicated into autoimmune disease, chronic fatigue syndrome, and it's also associated with Lyme disease, or the bacteria that cause Lyme disease, which is called Borrelia. So it's very important to look at what look at what you're taking in from your environment, in terms of nutrition, in terms of what's causing, what can cause an inflammatory response, and recognizing that these things that we deal with every day have such a profound impact on how our body functions.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you cap that with our stress levels, which weaken our immune response, then then there's a lot of work that we can do ourselves to manage our environment and manage our minds that can really go a long way to resolving our autoimmune issues.
Got it. Wow. Just a quick question. You mentioned Epstein-Barr, right? So once you have that marker, I always have the marker every time I take the blood work, but sometimes it's I don't know what this means. I'm not a doctor, but it's higher than it is some other times. So it's a level of what is it measuring in my body? And the doctor told me when the number is high, that's when you're probably not feeling so good. Do you understand any of that?
Well, it could also be that they could be measuring, well, when your immune system may not be fighting it, or it may not, where the
Got it.
virus may be circulating in your system, it may
Mm-hmm.
make you feel worse. So they're looking at, like, it's similar like with other viruses, when you look at like viral load or level of the virus in your serology, in your blood. They may look at that and say, well, it's, because your body is not fighting it, or maybe your immune system is fighting other things, or maybe your immune system is stressed out, or it's occupied with fighting other things. So I think one of the important things to always look at is, really trying to work on strengthening our immune systems by taking care of our gut, taking care of our gut health, making sure, leaky gut is not an issue, cutting down on those inflammatory stressors that we ingest, like sugar and flour, should be taken sparingly. Should not be, something that is present at every meal and every snack and before we go to bed. How we look at artificial sweeteners, how we ingest things with high glycemic content, or environmental toxins, like looking at herbicides or pesticides, washing our fruits and vegetables, trying to eat organic as much as possible. I know sometimes that's difficult, but looking at where it's valuable, it's important, and obviously, like, looking at infections in our guts. I work, like I mentioned, I work with clients who, I see H. pylori infection on a regular basis, and once that you clear that up, things start moving around again, and patients start feeling better. So I really do believe that this is something that should be paid attention to. I think that people can do something about it. And there's lots of resources available to support that.
Good, thank you. And just remind us, Doctor, how we can reach you. If someone's tuning in. We still have more time to talk, but just want to make sure we establish that again.
Sure, of course. So my website is intentionalselfct.com. My Facebook page is Intentional Self, and my Instagram is Dr. Teresa Alasio, and my phone number is 203-561-7980 for anybody that wants to call me directly. Certainly
Perfect.
welcome.
Gosh, thank you so much. Wow, wow, wow. Lots of information, always jam-packed. We still have 6 minutes left. In particular, what else did you want to speak of when it comes to autoimmune disease and our health, and all listeners out there that could benefit from this conversation?
Well, I think, some of the things that we can do right now to start working on our immune systems and have our, our inflammatory response, kind of decreased or dampened, and the levels of inflammation in our bodies kind of come down a little bit, are, twofold. Of course, managing your stress and anxiety is very important by getting good sleep. Try to get at least 7 hours of sleep a night. Um, Try and, have your sleep rituals, calm down before you go to bed, put away your devices. Also, you know, meditate in the morning, take your breaths and relax and try and get ready for your day in a calm and unstressed manner. That can go a long way, you know. Um, Moving your body, also very important for decreasing stress levels. And the other thing that we can do is, look at what you eat. Look and see if there are overrepresentation of inflammatory foods, such as, gluten containing foods, refined sugars, processed foods, processed vegetable oils, um, nightshades, which I said nightshades are like the potatoes, peppers, tomatoes, eggplant. And, yeah, I named a lot of vegetables, but sometimes these cause, issues with people. Sometimes they are inflammatory. So, maybe eliminating some of those things, maybe saying, well, I don't feel so good after I eat peppers. Like my son says that. One time I think I made like stuffed peppers. I thought I was being, good, healthy mom, stuffed peppers with
Of course.
brown rice and like nice, like plant-based meat. And, they were really, really good. But he ate one and he said, I don't feel so good. Like my stomach doesn't feel good. And I thought, I was like, wow, that sounds like, you know, there's probably some issue with the peppers.
Yeah.
So, I don't give him that anymore. I kind of backed off on it, and he can have it in small amounts, but maybe that is something that may have an impact on some people, some of our listeners. You know, Potatoes. I can't handle potatoes. I love potatoes. There's nothing I love more than good, like mashed potatoes, or, any kind of like roasted potatoes, baked potatoes, anything. But, I noticed after a while, like I started paying attention. Like I'd have potatoes at dinner and I'd be like,
Wow.
I don't feel really good. I felt really bloated. I felt, just not well after eating potatoes. And so now I have, pretty much, I have them on a, semi, infrequent basis, but I can't eat as much as I was eating.
Yeah.
So I think being mindful of what you eat, and that some of these foods can be inflammatory, even if they are, quote unquote, good for you, you know?
Mhm.
Um, Other things that we could do is take a good, high quality probiotic. Um, there are good medical grade probiotics out there. I use them on my clients. I use a probiotic myself. I think that that's, it's something that you can do to just give yourself a little extra oomph uh, in your system. Um, and also try and eat, high quality proteins. Um, like, lean proteins like fish and and lean turkey and chicken. Sometimes you do need red meat. If you eat red meat, you know it's okay to eat red meat because there's iron in it and we need that. And there's some things that you can't get anywhere else. But limit your red meat intake. I would say replace it more with other proteins that are not red meat. And also eat, fermented foods. Who doesn't like a good pickle?
Hmm.
Like, I love pickles. So, eating fermented foods. You can pickle just about anything. Kimchi is a big thing. You can use kimchi or pickles or any kind of other pickled beets I've made myself, stick them in my fridge. It's very easy. And that's something that's very good. I would watch kombucha. If you buy kombucha over the counter, like if you make it, that's one thing. It's kind of, I've never made it myself. I know some people have, and it's a process. But if you buy kombucha, just make sure that it has, it doesn't have like high sugar content, which can present, another issue. Like you don't want to have the sugar. So watch the sugar. I remember picking up one of them in the shop, right? And I was like, I got it home. I didn't look at it. I got it home. And it's like, oh my God, look at all this sugar. It had like 30 grams of sugar. I'm like, all right, that's enough, So you really have to watch and read your labels.
Got it.
So these are some of the things that you need to look out for.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the advice, for the guidance again, and for your show today. If we do want to reach out to you directly, would you mind sharing all forms of contact once again?
Definitely, Jill. So my website is intentionalselfct.com. My Facebook page is Intentional Self. My Instagram is Dr. Terry Alasio, and my phone number is 203-561-7980.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And looking forward to next time we speak again. Thank you for dealing with our technical difficulties. Good job to both of us. We're like, thank you. Have a good day.
Okay.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.